Our last few lecture topics have been talking about human influences on Earth. We have the biosphere, animal and plant influences on Earth, how they've changed Earth over the history of the planet, and then more recently, the human impact, either human impact as to how we treat the planet, how we behave, and how we do various things, whether it be through climate change or ozone depletion or what. We have an entire class on just what humans do to the planet. But the other thing is light pollution. This is something that's often not really thought about. You'd sort of think, hey, I want to be able to see, and so you put a light up at night. The way that people put lights up at night really hadn't changed drastically in thousands of years. Back when they used torches, you just stick a light out there. You want more light, you make a bigger torch or more of them. The problem is that this means light is all over the place, and this is a picture of the planet Earth, and then here is just the United States. That's taken from above. So that's light that's going up into space. Now, that's all wasted light. And I mean, if you're trying to light, the street so you can see to drive, you're not, this light is going up. That's not really what you want to do. And this is what we call light pollution. Now, light pollution has several effects. One effect is that you most obvious effect is that you don't see the sky as well, because after all, you need to have dark to see the sky. But that's not the only effect here. Light pollution is a lot of effect. Basically, you're wasting money. Okay. One of the things, for example, you notice that some companies that have lots of money, Walmart, for example, they put in a new Walmart, the kind of lights they put out here are on fixtures that direct all the light down to the parking lot. Okay, that's because the old fixtures that they used to use that just were a bulb up here on a pole, the light went in all different directions, and so the light going down here was fine. The light going up there, they're paying for but not using. Whereas if you put a reflector on here and you block all the light that was going up, that light is reflected so that it goes back down, and so you need only half of the electricity because you're using only half the light. You're using the light that goes down, the light that was going up, you're making go down. Well, wait a minute, that means not only you're not wasting all that energy, you can get away with less light to begin with because you're concentrating it more. And so proper lighting, so you're not spraying light where you don't need it, saves money. Now, saving money is obviously a good thing. That's why a lot of big companies will actually hire lighting engineers and say, hey, this kind of lighting saves us money. It also is great for astronomy, because light pollution is bad for astronomy. But saving money using less electricity is also a major benefit, because that means you have to produce less electricity. Producing electricity is always going to affect the climate. It doesn't really matter whether you make electricity with fossil fuels or by any other method. Any method that you make electricity is going to affect the climate, period. And so that's something that less energy produced means less climate change. So that's an important factor as well. Proper use of lighting, not wasting lighting, not sending light where you don't need it, and not more light than you need. A lot of people think you need more light than you really do need. Okay. Ecological. Climate change affects the economy, but there are other things. There's actually evidence that all this surplus light at night is affecting organisms that evolved not to have this extra light at night. For example, migratory animals. They've actually now started to trace decline in populations of certain migratory animals and insects to excess light at night. And so now we are actually pushing, threatening species by having excess light. So it's not just, hey, you can't see the sky, but you're also affecting the species out there that need them dark. You're also changing hunting patterns of predators that hunt by day, the dark, and so and you're changing the prey also, and so you're actually having a substantial ecological impact. That a lot of people don't think about. Not just the climate change part, but just the light itself is having an impact. The other thing that's interesting is health. You and every other organism on this planet is designed to have a cycle of light and dark. And so if you don't get this light and dark cycle, it affects you. Your body produces certain chemicals and hormones when exposed to light that it does not produce when you're not exposed to light. Now, you were actually designed to have these chemicals turn on and off. If you mess with the on-off cycle, that messes with you. This is kind of a famous problem that was that people very far north run into, and that is if you're very far north, then either you don't get sunlight or get very little sunlight for much of the year, and people tend to have depression at that point. On the other hand, too much light goes the other way around. Too much light makes aggressive and angry people. Okay, so agitates people. Well, that's really interesting because the big cities, which are very well lit, have a lot of aggressive and angry people in them. And so your body is designed to have dark day, night, day, night, day. There's also been some studies that link cancer to surplus light. That if you don't experience night, you have cancer. This famously started off first as studies as to why do shift workers, people that work nights and sleep days, tend to have more cancer. They thought that it had something to do with messing with the circadian rhythm. They thought that just not getting enough sleep was doing it, but they later figured out, no, it's because they weren't experiencing night. And so that suggested, a different strategy, and that is that maybe if you sleep in completely darkened rooms, you'll get better sleep and you'll be healthier. And that actually seems to work. So people that work nights sleep, in the day in completely dark rooms. That's better than otherwise. But it also means that for people who sleep at night, you don't want like a big bright light right outside your bedroom. It turns out not all light is equal. That the worst kind of light for you is the higher energy light. Remember, the color of light that's highest energy is blue, at least for visual light. So the blue light is worse for you to experience during night than the red light. Now that's also quite annoying because that in recent years we've started to switch away from the old energy hog incandescent lights where you just heat up a tungsten filament until it glows. It tended to glow kind of an orangish color, had very little blue light in it. We've switched to CFC lights or LED lights. Well, the manufacturers of these lights tend to make the lights so that they make things look brighter, and that means more blue light. So you can actually make them with less, so they make less blue light, but people like to buy the ones that make more blue light. And so it turns out that blue light is actually a health issue, that you really ought not to be experiencing blue light, at night. And so if you do have lights on at night, you need to have lights that are reddish orange or something like that, and not the daylight type lights. And so that's a health issue right there. Another factor that comes in is safety, because one of the reasons you put lights out at night is you think it keeps criminals away. Well, how do we know it keeps criminals away? Well, they interviewed a bunch of criminals in prison and asked, if light would keep them away, and they said, yeah. Okay. Problem with this is you're interviewing criminals and expecting them to be outstanding citizens and tell you the truth. Secondly, you're interviewing bad criminals that got caught. Okay. There's actually some studies that indicate that too much light gives the criminals work light to work with. Okay, whereas too little light means they have to carry their own flashlight with them, which gives them away. So there is some counter evidence to the contrary. The other interesting thing here that comes with this is that as far as safety, a really bright light interferes with other people seeing if you're not dark adapted or you are dark adapted, which means that glare makes it difficult to see. Okay. And so then it casts really dark shadows, which allow people to hide in. So too much light, particularly at night, when it's otherwise dark, is also a safety issue. And a lot of us have experienced the idea of someone driving at you with their high beams on, or nowadays you don't even have high beams on, just ordinary factory lights, are often very bright and very blue. And so that can cause glare, which can interfere with the eyesight of another oncoming driver, particularly an older driver who then has difficulty seeing the road. And so that means if you've got one of these cars that has the really extra bright and extra blue headlights, then that could put you in danger of distracting an oncoming elderly driver who might run into you. And I say elderly because it doesn't have to be elderly, but the older you get, the less susceptible your vision is to handling that. How do you fix the problem? Well, you just change the way you do lights. Okay, like I said, some companies have actually changed the way they put lights out that actually have less glare. And so what you want is to have a light fixture that directs the light down to the ground, not off where you're not wanting it, and definitely not up into the sky, reflecting off the things that are up there. And so just in researching the kind of light fixture that gives you the more light. And of course, if you take all the light that was out here and concentrate it down here, it makes it brighter down here, which means it might be brighter than you need, which means you can cut down on the electric bill, have a lower wattage bulb, and get more light where you want it. Okay, so light mitigation efforts. And so, for example, you have very poor unshielded lighting. Replace those lights with lights that are not so glaring, or remove them, and then it changes the sky. Now, this is just the aesthetic part right here. This is the science part. This is like, oh, I can actually see the sky now. And connect with my ancestors that looked up and they saw the sky. But this also means that like I said, all these other effects that light has, you can mitigate quite a bit by just having proper designed lighting, rather than just sticking a light on a pole and saying you're done with it and you don't get as much light where you won't put more light up. That strategy is really a bad idea.